Hi, English 1108 students. Mary here. I just wanted to follow up with some important information from the first research assignment and also to talk about the most common mistakes that I see in papers as you start thinking about your first paper. So, and they're related. So the first research assignment shows you the difference between scholarly or authoritative sources and credible but not authoritative sources. So here's the deal. In academic writing, you want your paper to rely primarily on scholarly sources or authoritative sources, like the best, most authoritative possible, right? So a scholarly source is an academic journal, a book written by a professor or a scholar published by an academic press, something that has gone through the peer review process. And then, so that's easy, like a journal is a scholarly source. But another kind of source is that authoritative source. What does that mean? What is an authoritative source? The best way to think about that is that this comes from an organization that hires people to produce knowledge. An authoritative source hires scholars to produce knowledge. So for example, the Environmental Protection Agency is an authoritative source. They hire researchers, scientists, and scholars to conduct studies, do research, come to conclusions, and produce knowledge. That is a great source. It is as strong as possible. The United Nations hires scholars. The Bureau of Forestry, the Council of Foreign Relations, what is that? The Heritage Foundation hires scholars. Now they're a little bit biased to the left, like another think tank, the New American Foundation, I think. The New American Enterprise is more to the left. So that's an example of sources that would be acceptable as authoritative because they hire scholars to produce knowledge, but you also might want to give that some context. So, but those nonetheless are the strongest possible for academic writing. What happens, and that the first research assignment shows you where people slip up, is that students will use something like the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, National Public Radio, what's another one? The New York Times, The Guardian, strongly credible sources, but they don't hire people to produce original knowledge. These news sources, strongly credible, hire people to report the knowledge produced over here in colleges and universities, in government institutions like the EPA, the United Nations. These people produce the knowledge. The BBC, CNN, New York Times, they just report it. So these are not the strongest possible. And you only want to have one or two of those sources in academic writing, and the bulk is going to come over here. And this is a big part of the first research assignment, but also one of the two things that I see people making mistakes in, and it hurts their grades on papers. So that's the first thing to consider as you start working on that first paper, the difference between credible sources, but scholarly or authoritative sources, and you want to be 90% here. And what I see is that most people are 90% here, and it hurts your grade. So that's one thing. The other thing that really detracts from the power of student papers generally is mechanics, writing at the sentence level. So that is something to really watch out for. I'm going to be talking about that throughout the entire semester, but get a proofreader. I have a proofreader. I have people read things. Don't count on your own spell check, because that will accept THEIR when it really should be THERE, etc., that sort of thing. So writing at the sentence level is very important, and it at this level at the community college requires a little more time and effort, I think, than most people want to give it. The other big thing about sentence level writing is look at the structure of your sentences. If every sentence, or 90 or even 70% of your sentences start with a noun, a person, place, or thing, then you have a problem, because that rhythm is going to be very simplistic, kind of monotonous, and is an immediate signifier of a kind of simplicity that could run throughout the whole paper. So that's the first tip as you start thinking about the rough draft and about ways in which you can improve the paper. So mechanics, writing at the sentence level is hugely important and one of the two main areas in which students struggle, and the second is finding the best possible sources. So I hope that helps as you walk toward that first rough draft. Thanks, everybody.